And I think there's a snobbishness with reading books. They are a bit outdated. They're a little bit like playing the spoons and tap dancing and the theatre. In that they were good once, but things have moved on.
The head's not quite on the right place. That's his little issue that he's got to work on for the moment.
My apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Look, I'm all for innovation, and I advocated putting a scrum half in the line out. It sounds great, but it's bollocks idea, really.
Very good.
I love that intro. It's
I
great.
do.
It is,
I love both of yours. It's a bollocks idea.
Hello and welcome to Under the Sticks, a podcast brought to you by Pro14 Rugby, where we attempt to deliver, as always, half-baked opinions served up as real rugby analysis. My name is Andy McGeady, and it's been a quiet old night on the rugby news front. We'll get to some of that later, but with me is Sean Holley. How are you?
Hi, Andy. Good to see you, mate. My head's in the shed with all of this. You know, I worked all weekend on rugby, full of analysis, stats, games. Looking forward to doing Toulon and Scarlets Friday. Excited about that. And then the news today. And all of the ramifications that means. So heads in the shed a bit, but I'm looking forward to the pod.
Good man. We'll get to all those ramifications. We will be in the realms of absolutely dangerous speculation. Fortunately, Paul Williams, that is where we excel.
Yeah, we are good. That sackable speculation is where we thrive. So yeah, I've been looking forward to tonight. How are you guys? You okay?
Doing well, I think. I've still a lot more hair than I really should do. There's a lot of volume going on up top.
Wax,
we might need an intervention.
That's what I do. I disguise my luscious curls with wax, but
yeah. That's the sort of haircut that superheroes have before they change into the superhero. So they have that, and then it gets swept into like a cool quiff.
Yeah, you haven't seen it swept yet, have you?
No, the claw.
No, and there's a lot of people who are already dialed in who would love to see that. Harold Davis, evening gentlemen, James O'Brien, Gregor Galway, Harley Worthy, Ian Gilbert, hi from Madrid, Michael Jenkins, hi from Pembrokeshire, West Wales, as always. Mauro DeMarco, we still retain our Italian following. Michael Jenkins. Has Sean got his milk tray?
Oh, I knew this was coming. Look, let's nip this in the bud. I was on Scrum 5 yesterday in Wales, BBC Two Wales, and I said to my wife before I left, I said, it's a bit nippy. I'm thinking I'm going to wear a polo neck today, and I've got a nice blue one, right? I've got a nice blue one, which is less controversial, or obvious. She said, "Oh no, wear the black one. It's nice with your grey trousers." And okay, didn't think, did I? I'd had my head in the laptop doing analysis all morning. I get there, of course, you go on lights, studio, presentation. Yeah, all I needed was a box of milk tray, and I've had it ever since.
Nice.
Cheers, Michael.
Nice. So, get your comments and questions in. We'll get to them towards the end of the show, but we'll be going through the Pro14 from last weekend. There was a good bit of action to talk about there. Some big results in terms of how this season is going, and we'll go into that. We will talk about the European announcement that was made earlier on this evening. We're recording on Monday night if you're listening back. And talk about what we know as of now and what is likely and what that might mean. We will get to that. We'll be talking about some lip this weekend from a few different games, both in the Guinness Pro14 and outside, because Kyle Sinclair did play rugby outside the Guinness Pro14 this weekend and has been cited for his lip. So we'll get to that. Lads, let's go straight in. Pro14 games. We had a postponement at short notice, not because of COVID, which seems unusual. Glasgow Edinburgh was called off only about 15 minutes before kickoff. It is unusual for an artificial pitch to freeze, but freeze it did because it gets very, very cold in Scotland, especially when there's some weird polar vortex coming down. So the referee spoke to the teams, walked it with the coaches, and they said, lads, you can't play on this. So hold that thought, Glasgow and Edinburgh. You might be able to do the world some use over the next couple of weeks. We'll get back to that later. Headline, Zebre knocked over Bennett on back-to-back weekends. Paul Williams.
It was brilliant. They are my new bandwagon team, Zebra. I am all. They were so good on the weekend. I know Sean will add a lot more detail, but their scrum was fantastic on the weekend. In the second half, I think they generated 5 scrum penalties alone, which is massive.
Fischetti,
But he's our new favourite, isn't he, Sean?
like him. He's
We're
not going to be there
all over
long.
him.
Unfortunately, sorry, Zebra fans, Michael Bradley. If I'm Leon, if I'm Claremont, I'm looking at him now, going, "Oh, we'll have you, son."
He is that good, isn't he? I nearly
Yeah.
put it in my. He's like. He's Gethin Jenkins' style. I think he's going to be. I don't know whether he's as good as that.
No.
I'm not saying he's as good as I'm not saying as good as Gethin Jenkins, but in terms of ability, basic skill set, he's got it,
good.
and he's good scrummager.
He's good, but Paul, he's playing. No disrespects, right?
No, I know.
But he's playing for Zebra for a reason, right? Either because people have done their due diligence and looked at him, and or he's off the radar and up and coming. I'd like to think it's the latter, mate. Like you and I have noticed the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Powerful, aggressive scrummager. Very good in the loose, massive tackler.
Yes.
Good. I watch things like how's he lifting in the line out? Is he having a rest? Is he a bit lazy there? No, full lifts. Good technique. So, I like this guy. I like him a lot, and they've deserved it, man. I know Benetton aren't hitting the straps like they have done in the last 2 seasons. However, Zebra have gone out 2 wins, and they did well in Europe just prior to that. So, fair play, Michael Bradley.
Yeah, and I think they're good. They scored some really nice tries too. But Boney and Maury were good in the midfield again. I was really impressed with them. I really enjoy watching Zebra at the moment, along with Connacht and Ulster. They're my sort of new bandwagon teams.
Paul's bandwagon is always worth watching, folks.
It's massive, my bandwagon. It's ridiculous. It's like a HGV these days.
As Hurley Worthy has noted, Paul's column mentions 1, and we're only 7 minutes in. That's pretty good.
Thank you, Harley. It's not just me with that sort of perspective. No.
Clicks up.
At what point can I gratuitously drop in my plug for my column?
So we're still rolling through. Again, we're going to keep some of the comments till later. But morning to Chiefs Girl. Haven't seen Chiefs Girl for a while. Because we were changing the day that this was aired. So you finally got the right day. Good to see you. Let's keep moving. Zebre knocked over Benetton. Back-to-back wins over them for the first time since 2016. Fair play. This is good.
They're above Glasgow now, which is the other thing to remember.
Yeah, are we going to? I think we're going to the RDS. Leinster 24, Ulster 12. We spent a lot of time talking up our new overlords in Ulster. Sean, were we disappointed in Ulster or impressed by Leinster, or what did you see in that game?
Great question, Andy. That's why you're presenting this show. It's a bit of both for me, mate. I know we have lauded Ulster, and rightly so. They played some good rugby and scored recently. But, I think if you go back to the archives at the start of the year, I still had question marks over them. I even had question marks over them when the Scarlets went out there and nearly rolled them with that Treadwell incident. You remember the card or not card? So it didn't surprise me. Because the worst thing that could have happened for us, that I believe, is that Connacht beat Leinster the week before. They picked a side to do a job. They were probably smart, and it gave Leo, something to talk about in the week and prepare. And, I know it's 24-12, but I always look at the tries column.
Yeah,
that's
felt more than that.
It's 4-0. You know what I mean? And I think we all. And then on our WhatsApp group, say Leinster second half we're going to pull away. They probably could have pulled away a little bit more, but the big stat there for me is the clean breaks one. That Leinster are way out in front in clean breaks, and that tells you a lot about a team. And when Ulster can only muster up 1 clean break, it says a lot about where Leinster really are. So, yeah, they have them puffed, but. Coetzee tried his best to get yellow carded, didn't he? But he was like a banshee. But in the face of it, you only got people like Rudder, Keelan Doris, and some of the big boys were back. Fardy, Cronin, these I thought Porter played well. When they front up front, the backs can do the rest. So, a bit of both hand to answer your question, I think.
Yeah, I think the 31 defenders beaten's massive. And like we were mentioning in our little group as well, Byrne at 13, he seemed to create so much doubt in the Ulster backline when he was defending. You look at Keenan and Lama, I think Keenan beat 6 defenders, Lama 5, and they were all in that little channel when Byrne was causing problems and people didn't know whether he was going to pass or he was going to step or was he kick or what's he going to do. So, yeah, it was a fantastic performance from Leinster. It felt like more than the scoreline.
The other thing with Leinster, and we've got their attacking stats up on the screen for those who are just listening, they rank first in the Guinness PRO14. Try scored. They're up there in points scored, offloads, meters gained, obviously, defenders beaten and clean breaks I mentioned. But in the 9 games that they've played, they've got 9 bonus points.
Yeah.
It says a hell of a lot. I was looking at I did the Cardiff Blues game on Saturday night, and you do all your homework, due diligence. Cardiff Blues in 11 games have scored 2 bonus points.
Yeah.
That means losing bonus points as well. It counts for a hell of a lot, when you pump inside and getting the extra point all the time, which is why when it comes down to it, and we talked last week about, is it Leinster, Ulster, who's going to win that conference? Bonus points could make a massive difference.
They could, and that's why I was really impressed by Leinster's decision late on to go for the corner instead of going for the points, because that was a big picture decision. It was going, this isn't simply us sealing everything. It's actually opening up a 5-0 match points as opposed to 4-1. It just took a lot of things off the table. Yeah, and that extra 2-point swing could be absolutely crucial, and people don't often see that in the game. But they saw that opportunity, and even if they hadn't got the try, that was one where you're going, the risk reward, you absolutely take that risk at that point in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on, Dragons Ospreys, Dragons 20, Ospreys 28. There's a bit going on in this game. We did, hand on heart, went in with studs up on some of the Welsh regions last weekend, but we got a bit more this week, and it was great to see, Paul.
Yeah, we rightly went in studs up, actually, because I looked at some of the numbers on the weekend, and the 4 Welsh regions are in the top 4 for kicking meters. So it's them, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. So I think the top there, I think the Ospreys are top 8,500 meters. And then to put it in perspective, Leinster are 10th with 5,500. It's nearly double. So they're kicking away almost double the possession. But like you say, Dragons Ospreys was a much better game. George North looks like he wants to go on the Lions tour, whether it's on or not. I mean, he is playing like vintage George North. Matthew Prothero again. I don't know how much that boy weighs. Say he's 4 stone and he plays like he's about 90. Right? Unbelievable. Such a good player. I really enjoyed watching it. And then the big surprise, I think, of the season for me has been Jamie Roberts at the Dragons. If he wasn't the age he is, he'd be in the Welsh squad because he's the best centre in Wales at the moment, bar John Davis. The angles he was picking on the weekend, it's like he was 25 again. So I really enjoyed watching that game. It's good to see the Ospreys winning too.
Well, it is good to see him winning. But on the flip side of that, the Dragons in that third quarter, after half-time, 15, 20 minutes, had a load of possession and territory. And I could just, knowing Dean Ryan as I do, I could see him in his post-match interview. He is seething, right? Absolutely seething. However, and I was speaking to Jamie about this yesterday because I was with Jamie Roberts. He said he's trying to temper himself because he understands he's got a longer-term role there to develop the Dragons and the younger players. And I sort of think, well, just let it off, Dean. Because when you see Dean go,
he's going
to behold, right? It's a sight to behold, and not every 20 to 25-year-old young Welsh rugby player is ever going to see that again. So I think it's coming. I think it's coming because they're not learning. And Jamie had a brilliant game, and he put him in such a great position, but they never took their chances. Ospreys went up the other end. They got the one chance to score a driving maul try, and they got it in the corner from the old Andy Allen in the front. Don't get off the floor, and Scott Orton goes over in the corner. So it's the Ospreys are developing that mentality again under Toby Booth, which is good to see. And they were bold enough to make a couple of changes. No Tiprick, no Lydiot go into the Dragons. It was good. So I enjoyed it. It was a good game.
Yeah, it was a good game.
So that was one good game, and we had a couple of games on Saturday night. We'll skip over to Galway. Connacht 10, Munster 16. For a lot of this game, this was not close. It was not close at all. And then it started getting really messy, and Connacht suddenly, I mean, it was just a tremendous finish to the game. So if you did not watch this game, skip the first 70 minutes, watch it from there. And it is great.
Ferocious.
Absolutely phenomenal. It's just brilliant. It's got absolutely everything, including Connacht doing pure Connacht things like a mad cross kick to a second row at the other side of the field in peeing rain, who then sidesteps his way in and almost scores. It was just tremendous entertainment.
Look at the clean breaks in the stats.
That was low, in it.
There wasn't a lot of room out there, was there?
No.
And it's reflected in the tries, isn't it? Because clean breaks lead to tries, and unless it's a maul try, you need clean breaks and you to make these big sort of 20-yard gaps. And it wasn't that sort of game. Munster tackled so well, though. I think they were up to about 180 tackles at the end, that's a big old number.
About last weekend, right? Last week's show, we talked about this game as being absolutely crucial, and it was, because the way that this competition, that this championship has been decided this season, that the winner of this conference goes through to the final, and if Connacht had managed to pull this one out of the bag, it would have transformed how that conference looks. It would have been such a kick in the teeth for Andy Friend Sean as a coach to see his team never give up in that game, to get them back into a position, including just a tremendous touchline conversion from Cardiff in those conditions, and then see playing against 13 men. And talk from a coach's perspective. I know what I think as an ignorant man from the couch, right? But when I see a scrum, right decision against 13 men, take the scrum under the post, how did they do it that wrong?
You're almost helpless in that position as a coach, because there's only so many contingencies in the week you can go through with your team, with your leadership group, with your captain. If he would have foresaw a tight game. Do you see a scenario where you've got a scrum under the sticks against 13 men in the middle of the field, and however, you back your players on the field to make the right decisions? Clearly, where's the space? Where are you strong? Where's the space? But I go back to what I said last week, and I will always say from now on: never back against Munster. There are. In games like that, their selection was great, right? They went and got that bonus point in Ulster, right, with a pusillanimous selection. Then they roll the guns out, right? They roll the guns out at Connacht away, showing huge respect for Andy Friend's men. They get the game that they expect. But, in my career, I've found that when you go to certain teams, some of the big names, they don't turn up for games like that. You know what I mean? We never had that at the Ospreys. But you go to certain places where you knew player X was a big name, bit of a show pony, did this. Munster don't have that. No. I look closely. It's Ty Burn was player of the match, Guinness player of the match, right?
Stander played well too, didn't he? God.
I've got to have a look at this now. CJ Stander was unbelievable, right? He could easily have gone, I got a Lions tour coming up. I got a Six Nations. He's Connacht away. He's a bit cold and windy. He was phenomenal, right? He put himself about. So he must be so fit, right, and durable. Ty Burn was great. But then the centres, what a battle in the centre. For a game like that, where it really goes out wide, Dale Anday and Farrell up against Daly and Arnold,
who were brilliant
to behold. It's a dream for me to see that. We talk about Jared Evans all night and Hugo Keenan, but those four going at it, hammer and tongs, was brilliant. It was amazing.
Daly and Arnold are nearly my favourite centre combo in the world at the moment. Nothing goes through them, and they go through anything. I love them.
I don't think anybody would have been disappointed with 16 all.
No, I wouldn't have. Coombs played well as well. Some lovely little offloads from Coombs. He's a hell of a good boy. He is. He's going to be, whether he's a 6 or an 8, I don't know, but played well.
He's one of those players who, we've talked about this before in the show. You know, a number on the shirt is not as important as the skills that your team needs from you, right? So we didn't actually talk about this in terms of the Ross Byrne selection at 13. Ross Byrne didn't stay at 13 for the whole game, as in what you do in school, where you always line up in that place and everything's nicely in order, right? Things change during a game, and depending on the scenario, you're put in different places. And the way Leinster used that Sexton-Byrne axis, I loved it, because I love a second distributor, and Byrne's a hell of a distributor. And it was just, he made a lot of people think out there. It's one of those games where I think a lot of things went well for Byrne, and on a different day, maybe he could have been exposed. But it was great to see. But in this game, and with Coombs to the future, Coombs is someone whose skill set you want, because he has a very rare ability near the goal line. It's very, very rare to have a guy that big with such good body control that low to the ground as well. And they're going to find a place for him. Ireland will find a place for him. That's an absolute guarantee at some stage in the future. But we won't count any chickens just yet, because as long as we can keep rugby going in some fashion, hold the line.
Hold.
So Connacht, Munster. So that's pretty. Look, Munster. We'll get to the tables in a second. Munster are well in control of Conference B. Weird things would have to happen now. You know, good luck in the final, lads. Pretty much. But then, interesting game. A lot going on to talk about here. Sean, Cardiff 29, Scarlets 20. What do you want to talk about first? Because there was plenty.
Yeah, and we've had a load of comments on it, but we'll get to those later in the show. But I was fortunate enough to commentate on this, and I really enjoyed it, because, like Paul said, it was a kick fest, over Christmas and the Welsh Derbies. But they came out to play. The shackles were off, and a lot of that is maybe to do with John Mulvihill leaving in the week. Young coaches taking over. Dai Young not starting until today. You can imagine the team talks in the week, can't you? But the Scarlets started the better. They scored, and it probably ignited the game, because the Blues had to sort of chase a little bit then. But my gosh, those halfbacks were fantastic. Thomas Williams and Jared Evans. If they didn't put their hand up for Wales selection, I don't know who did. But they were electric. They went for tap penalties. They went down short sides. Jared Evans had Josh Adams coming in on his inside to hold defenders that he could just go through on show and goes. He was electric. And then, of course, we had the incident. Gareth Davis got yellow carded. There was scuffles. There was argy-bargy. And then we had an unfortunate incident with Liam Williams, which I'm sure we'll talk about. No, it was pretty even in the stats. Even at 14 men, Scarlets came back really strong.
Yeah, they did.
But you can see missed tackles there is probably as a result of being down to 14 men. They got stretched a little bit because they played 45 minutes, I think, Paul, is it, with 14 men. But they got themselves in the lead and then started becoming ill-disciplined themselves again, and the Blues got back into it. Great game. Really enjoyed it.
It was amazing. I really enjoyed it. And you know me, I am shallow at best when it comes to rugby. So for me, it was all about Jared Evans. I don't care what anyone else is. That step he put on John Davis, John Davis not only bought it, sold it, rebought it, stuck it on eBay. It was unbelievable. I've never seen John Davis turned inside out like that. He looked panicked. Really, really good display. And like you say, Thomas Williams, he looks like he's stacked on a little bit of good weight as well doing the COVID break. He looks stronger. I don't know whether that's just my low definition TV.
But what also was good, mate, was that the two young back rowers, James Botham and Shane Lewis-Hughes, who've got big careers ahead of them, but they're still very naive. They fronted up. They played well in their own right. They weren't absolutely unbelievable, but they did their nuts and bolts, and they were up against a back row of McLeod, Callum Mahoney, Blake Thompson.
Callum Mahoney. Jeez, and he's getting more and more confident every week now, Callum Mahoney. On the weekend, he had the ball in one hand, I'd say, every other carry. He was doing the proper Fijian one-handed wave. Amazing.
That for anyone in the comment section or listening back who has not watched the Ray Lilo try yet, Go watch. Just pause this now and go watch the Ray Lilo try, because it's got everything. It's got Jared. It's got Thomas. It's got a crazy offload. It's everything. It's phenomenal rugby, and this is what we know that this Cardiff Blues team can do. They have the talent to do this and to do this lots, and it's great to see them do it and come off.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that is my idea of rugby, as you know. The super rugby sort of hybrid. It was fantastic. That offload from Thomas Williams was ridiculous. But like you say, you can't do any of that unless you pack a winning new ball. And that's always been the issue with Cardiff Blues. With a bit of luck now, that'll be rectified under Dai Young, and the tight five, particularly second rows, will be bolstered.
But that try, mate, came from a tap penalty.
Yes, true. Quick thinking.
So it's not the be all and end all, because the Blues don't have those front fives, in the squad. So I think what the failure of Mulville has been is not to recognise that and adapt your style. With Matt Sherrod and Danny Wilson, Cardiff played a quick game when they needed to. When they needed to, they had a better set piece. But they quickly they recognised this. They've gone and sped the game up. Jared Evans likes flashing to the blind side, which he did, and then it opened up, and the finish was just unbelievable. Great awareness of where the touching goal was, and but we haven't seen Halaholo and Lilo and Josh Adams and Jared and Thomas. We haven't seen them, and so let's hope now under Dai that we see a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm going to start a new rumor. Fichetti's going to sign for Cardiff. They just need that.
I'd love that. I can watch him every week. There's that step on John Davis. Just turned him literally inside out.
Oh, this is good. The producer is getting involved here now with pictures. This is what we need in this game.
Vintage Redmond. Vintage Redmond, this is.
Sean, do the talking here for the people listening back.
Just that now. That's the use of Josh Adams. I don't know whether we can go back. But there's the sort of side cat flap. And look at him. How on earth do you get it down there? Now, here he uses Josh Adams on his inside, squares up. Ratuva bites in on Adams, he's away. Now, it's great support play because Thomas Williams runs into the space. He has no right to give that, and he has no right to score this. So it's brilliant individual play. And what people, our listeners and followers, should recognise is they practice this. But if they don't, then they should. But it's clear that they do practice this. I'd have a little drill when I was coaching, which would just be that 5 metre, 10 metre by 5 metre with a touching goal. I'd have flags, and I'd have defenders coming from different spots, so they'd practice orientating their body in space to score.
I said that before about Coombs. Body control is a thing. Dave Carney is another player who has
brilliant try on the weekend.
Body control in that area of the field, and not everyone has this. It is an art form of its own to know where all of your body is within the spatial dimensions of that tiny area. It's an art.
Shane Williams was the master. He could score in one blade of grass, that boy.
Yeah,
he could. And we're going on to the incident here, I think, are we?
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about the thing. Yeah, we have to talk about talking about body control. That's good. Here comes Liam Williams controlling his body in a way that means his head connects with the head of Cardiff 6, who's completely out of the game on the ground. It was not a smart decision. The officials went through the framework. By the framework, it has to be a red card. But that wasn't the big talking point from the incident. So what happened next, Paul?
Yeah, it's I presume you mean the Liam's comment.
Yes.
Yeah. So as he walked off, he sort of uttered, "Oh, we're going to play touch next, are we?" Which, in the heat of the moment, I'm sure most people feel like that. These new interpretations are reasonably new. But the two things I think about that incident is, particularly on social media after, we saw a lot of the word intent. So a lot of people saying, "Oh, he didn't intend it. There was no intent," and that isn't part of the framework. So there is nothing to do with intent. That's like something from a decade gone by. So what did happen is he clashed heads with heads, and that is a red card, and that debate ends there. I think Liam Williams will regret saying what he said when he walked off. I mean, he is hot-headed. He hasn't really got a fuse, never mind a short one. I think he'd admit that.
He's been fairly, in Liam Williams' defence, and I have said lots of things about Liam Williams in the past. He has a very short fuse. He has history, but he's been pretty calm for a while in terms of just what I
changed
call
a lot.
mad Liam Williams things, which he had a lot of.
He's
in his
calmed down
history.
massively in the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
But then every now and again, it's still there in players, isn't it? You know, it's in a lot of them. Like Ellis Genge, he's got a tendency every now and again he'll just do something. But
I
that's
just
part of the
think-
way they play.
Yeah, it is. It's in Liam. You don't want to take it out of him. A lot of that is to do with the fact I think it was his first club game in 9 months.
Yeah.
He's been so frustrated. You can imagine. He's the type of kid who wants to play. You know, he knows how important this year is. If Lions goes ahead, you know, he's probably thinking this is my last shot at another tour.
Yeah.
And I've been out, you know, I was with the Wales squad and I got a 1 or 2 games, didn't go really well. I could have been playing some club rugby, a bit like Jonathan Davis. I could have been playing some club rugby, getting up to speed. And now I'm back. They put me in this game, right? They put me on the wing. What does that tell you? Right, you know, I've played 15 of the last 17 internationals at fullback, whatever. And I'm not making excuses for him. I'm not, because
Sorry,
it's
fact check. You're making excuses for him.
I'm not. I'm saying he was frustrated. It's part of the antecedent of the incident, and I think it's reckless. If anybody, I think I said this on commentary, if anybody says that Liam Williams has gone on there in that incident to go head on head, then they don't know what they're talking about.
Definitely
He hasn't. There's no malice or in it whatsoever. It's reckless.
Do you know what I thought was funny though? Right. So reckless, you're completely right. It is the term for that, and reckless is a term of art in rugby. Right. It means something. It isn't. You know. It means that you did something pretty stupid that meant that you weren't taking care of yourself or an opponent. Right. But it was very funny when you look back, and he's kind of shaking his head deliberately as if, you know, oh, I'm hurt too. Don't.
I know, but you know, from his first touch, he looked wound up, didn't he? He was flying into contact. His first carry, you know, it looked like that was going to be his last carry ever in the world. You know, he smashed into 2 backward forwards. That is what you get with Liam Williams. That's why I love him. He's one of my favourite players. But, you know, he'll regret saying what he said.
I think that's just frustration, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't the only player at the weekend. Jonathan Sexton was given a couple of words by Andy Brace in that game, saying, "Look, listen, you just play. You know,
he doesn't stop talking though. Is the Irish Dan Bigger, the Irish Daniel Bigger? It's just a constant commentary, isn't it? Which I love.
We referred to Kyle Sinclair as well. He's been brought up before the dock over in Premiership land. But anyway, let's go into the table. So where does all that leave us at what was going to be the European break? And you might see where we're going here. Conference A, Ulster played 11, 46 points. Leinster, 41 points, but 2 games now in hand, because that was what you would call in football parlance a 6-pointer that they went 5-0 on. Ospreys, 22, Dragons, 14. Now, interestingly, at the bottom of that table,
I know.
look what's happened.
It's great.
Zebre, 13, and bottom is Glasgow with 11.
Yeah. So game in hand, you know. But let's praise Zebra. It's brilliant. Back-to-back wins. You know, they've hauled themselves up there. You know, 1 point behind the Dragons. That's a fight, isn't it? 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's almost like we're watching Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and
last lap.
Valtteri Bottas at the top, and then there's a sideshow here that's going on. That makes it interesting for me. I like that.
I do too, because that bottom half is competitive to me. I like the look of Zebra, the way they're playing now, and Dragons have improved. Say 4 or 5 seasons ago, Zebra and Dragons were just dead and buried and were so far away from anything. It didn't matter what they did. Yeah. Whereas that now, that's a competitive, you know, mid to bottom half.
Well, we still got European places to play for, haven't we?
There we go.
Next up, Conference B. Referred to this earlier on with that result at the sports ground in Galway. Munster are well clear now. So played 9, 37 points. Connacht played 9, 26 points, 11 points back. Scarlets 24, played 10. Cardiff 22, but again played 11. Edinburgh some way back on 14, but they've only played 8 matches because of postponements. And Benetton with 4 points played 9. So Benetton, they've disappointed a lot of people from Paul, from former bandwagons not far from this show.
I did have one buttock on that bandwagon at the start of the season. I've come off it now. But they have been a disappointment. They've struggled massively during the test window, though. When we spoke to Dean Budd, they were bringing players from clubs that even if you watch a lot of Italian rugby, you've probably never heard about. So that that's a struggle for them, has been all season. Edinburgh's a big surprise for me at the bottom there, because they haven't looked competitive at all season. When I was looking through the stats, they've kicked away the least possession, but then they're nowhere near on the running stats. So you just wonder what they are doing at all. If you're not kicking or running, what are you doing?
Let's come back to that after watching Edinburgh next time. Let's pay close attention and see what we can see from that game. But before we get to what might happen in the near future, Sean, team of the week in the Guinness.
Our super producer has given me another role, and I'm delighted because
unpaid, probably knowing Redmond.
That's I do it for the love of the game.
As the freelancer, what were you offered? You were offered exposure, was it?
Yeah, I was offered some very fine whiskey.
Oh, there we go.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do. There's a clue.
But no, it's an absolute honour to do this. However, and of course, it took me back to being a coach, because it's the hardest thing about being a professional coach is selection. And immediately when it was published, when I sent it across and everybody was happy with it, then I realised that I'm putting myself up to be shot every week now by every fan in the Guinness PRO14, because so-and-so should have been in there, so-and-so should have been in there. So I had Osprey fans saying, why haven't you got Matt Prothero? Well, go and watch Hugo Keenan in the detail that I've watched. So I can guarantee, as usual, I've watched all the games in huge detail and studied the form and the stats. And yeah, they were tough touch and go decisions. But do you want me to quickly go through?
Yeah, go through it. And before you do, give us. So you said you're picking this as a coach. So were you going each individual in a position, or were you saying I actually reckon that they'd play well together?
Yeah, no, my remit is just the by position. All right, I'd probably pick a different team if I was going for a team, on balance to play another team. But we mentioned Fricchetti at Loosehead, like him, 22 years old. Cronin, I just like the impetus he gives. He's a unique hooker, dynamic runner, and he'll get you tries. His comeback is timely for Leinster.
He's a centre.
I thought Porter was, when you look at tight heads across the league this weekend, you're going to be a little bit hard push. You have to go for consistency of performance. I thought Porter, I mentioned in my column, it was a silent assassin. David Cece, captain, winning back-to-back Zebra, had to be in there. Tyburn was phenomenal, 5 turnovers. And then I went Stander and Caelan Doris. Caelan Doris is almost like having The Rock, a 20-something-year-old The Rock in your team. Fantastic. Josh van der Fleer is unlucky because he made a ridiculous amount of tackles against Ulster. But I was trying to balance out the number of teams so there was a fair spread of winning teams. And Sam Cross had a decent game, and he had a big role to play with Tipperick not there. Jameson Gibson Park was close at 9 because he was phenomenal. But then I went for Thomas Williams and Jared Evans as a partnership. I went for Chris Farrell because in a game like we've talked about at Galway, for a 13 to stand up and do those things with and without the ball, pretty special out of those 4. Jimmy Roberts, we've talked about, was immense. Josh Adams coming back to form. George North was probably, for me, outside of Jamie Roberts, man of the match. Because I think you pick man of the match based on somebody who has a real impact on the game. And I thought George had more of an impact on the game than Prothero. Although Prothero was excellent, Hugo Keenan was, in my column, I wrote, Tommy Bow-like.
Yeah, he really is.
Ooh, hype. That is for any new listeners. That is high praise from Holley.
That's platinum praise. That is from Holley. That's above gold.
He plays like him. That's what I mean. I think he's as good as Tommy yet, if he ever will be. But his running style, his involvement, his attitude, he reminds me of Tommy.
Yeah.
There's pretty much only one more level you can give. It's Shane Williams-esque.
Yeah.
In Britain and Ireland.
Yes.
Yeah. We're not talking Southern Hemisphere here, but yeah. Well, crikey. Yeah.
So there we go. You are setting yourself up for absolute
we are.
right.
Do you know what?
Kingdom will be better than Tommy Blow.
And do you know what?
Baker.
And if you go back 20 minutes and I said Viscetti was possibly going to be Gethin Jenkins level, I was stuck on the Holly Gallows and left
You
swinging.
said that. I never
Left
said what that headline
swinging.
says.
You never
I
said
never.
that.
That's libelous.
Media Wales. Being there
So
tomorrow.
when we were coming on, we said that it had been a quiet old day in rugby world, because as we move outside parochial matters in the Guinness PRO14 and move into what was going to be a European weeks, and then we get an announcement that came out, and it was not a surprise. In fairness, there's been a lot of discussion. The French authorities, Sporting and Health, are rightly concerned at the spread of the new strain of COVID in the UK and in Ireland. Following a directive from the French authorities that the participation of top 14 clubs in the Heineken Champions Cup and Challenge Cup at the current time constitutes too great a public health risk, EPCR has no choice but to announce today, this was Monday, that the 2020-21 tournaments are temporarily suspended. So, what do we know now for sure? We know that there is going to be no European Champions Cup or Challenge Cup games over the next 2 weeks. We know that the Premiership Rugby are taking a break over that time. Top 4 teams seems to be playing games. I think we can be fairly sure, given the local nature of 2 games at least, the Glasgow-Edinburgh game that was postponed last weekend. Sean, I'd be very surprised if we didn't see that over the next 2 weekends. And similar with the Munster-Leinster game that's hanging around from Christmas.
Yeah,
I think it'd be sensible, mate. I really do.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. Strike while the iron's hot. There are games to fill in. It's a convoluted, difficult season as it is. What I'm concerned about with the Premiership, mate, is if they take a 2-week break, are they sending their players home?
it's odd, isn't it?
Because to me, if they send their players home, you're increasing the risk. At least the boys now are in some form of bubbles, you know. And if they continue to play like we're suggesting, okay, Europe's not on, so let's fill in some of those fixtures that we haven't had in the Guinness PRO14 and Guinness PRO14, and the teams, I'm sure, are very proactive and quickly adjust to that and would agree to it. Let's do it. Let's do it quickly. Fans aren't an issue. Travel is what it is. There's no difficulty getting flights or stuff like that at the moment, is there? Or buses, because nobody's on them. But yeah, let's do it. I mean, I'm perplexed a little bit by the Premiership. Take a break.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's the which side of the coin is it? The player welfare, which they could obviously do with a 4-week break, or do you play the games and free up a ridiculously congested end of season, which is going to happen? There'll be no right answer. Whichever one you pick, someone will criticize you. It's there's no easy answers. It's no easy answers in COVID rugby.
Yeah, that's the one thing which, because the Guinness PRO14 is played in a number of different countries, that when there's the opportunity to play games that are not involving travel, it's a good one to tick off the list.
Yeah.
In what is, as you rightly say, just going to be this weirdly congested season. There's even saw the tables that we just talked through. There's loads of different teams with different number of games played, and it's the same all around the place. I've seen some chatter around Welsh derbies. Similarly, I'm sure they're thinking about this. But there's a lot of stakeholders. You've talked about the coaches. Some coaches might actually like a break. There's the broadcasters. What do the broadcasters actually want? Do they want to space out games? I don't know. Like, we're just spitballing here as much as anyone else.
Can you imagine being in one of these meetings with all of the stakeholders just shouting and going, no, this is more important. This is more important. Players' unions, TV. It must be a really, really don't envy rugby administrators at the moment.
I don't think I think it's a no-brainer to fit in, say, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Munster, Leinster in the next 2
The
weeks.
odd one. Yeah.
We just looked at the tables. There's some teams who've played 8, some who've played 11. If those teams are up for it and they're derbies and the weather's okay and they're COVID-free, let's get it on.
Yeah, true enough. And like you're saying, it's what the teams want to do. They can't be, strong-armed into things they wouldn't want to do. I wouldn't have thought. If they're up for playing it, play it, like you say.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, it's like everything that's going on last season and this, there's going to be a lot of movement. Like certainty is a thing that we had in 2019, my friends. This is now 2021, right? We don't have that luxury anymore.
No.
But we've got a pause now in European competition. The pause and the congested season means that when this competition returns, when the Heineken Champions Cup or the Challenge Cup come back, it's very likely that there'll be some kind of tweaked format. Like we already had, the original format had dual-legged quarterfinals and whatever. No, we're getting rid of that. That's a guarantee. They're not going to have that extra week.
No.
But so who knows what's going to happen? I will say, don't get too upset about what speculation you hear, because everybody is just going to try and get something done before the end of the season. We don't know what it's going to look like yet. Six Nations, similarly. Six Nations is a different animal than than club rugby. There's far fewer teams, far fewer matches, and the reward for getting those games played is far, far greater. So the money and the broadcast rights to those unions is very, very important to them that they get played. And even as we saw last season, if it just gets completed and it was a 9-month season, so be it. I think we'll see all efforts to keep those being played. I will mention that it's very unfortunate. It looks almost certain that the Women's Six Nations is at to be cancelled. There isn't the same money in the broadcast rights, and it's a different kind of bubble. You're not dealing with the same professional bubbles. Connor Smith, I just see Summer Six Nations could happen, hopefully. We talked about that in previous shows. Depends what they do with the Lions Tour.
It's the Lions Tour, isn't it? It's that House of Cards we talked about. I mean, that has to be decided first, I think. I'm hearing, I'm sounding like Simon Thomas, I'm hearing that the vaccination program in South Africa has been delayed for some reason or other, which is going to, push it into realms of Lions Tour. And, we can't risk cross-fertilization of strains. And, I've been on a lot of Lions Tours. The average age of Lions supporter, because they're retired and more wealthy, older people.
And they've got time. Exactly. It's like you said.
It's retired people. I can't see how that is now going to go. I sincerely hope it does if it's safe, but I can't see going ahead. So make the decision so that it becomes easier to make the decision about the Six Nations. And therefore, can you imagine then EPCR, Guinness PRO14 can breathe out a little bit and have some windows, then that break the players are maybe needing physically and mentally as well, obviously, because they've been at it one way or another for quite a long time, not knowing what to do, who they're playing, where they're going, then that could be afforded. And imagine a Summer Six Nations.
Honestly.
Where are we? We got Blues home or away, Paul?
We are, no idea now. I can't even remember how we finished last season.
I think it's Blues away, isn't it?
I think it is Blues away, and
imagine Dublin in the sun, Dublin in June.
Hold on. Now, speaking as a proud Irishman, we're doing our best right now because we are the most infected place in the world over the next 14 days.
Are you really?
Yeah, we've taken the lead. I like to.
That's good going.
It's always good to have something to point to and saying, yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
We had impact.
Yeah, we are shit hot at COVID.
It's unreal. We've gone from being pretty good to moderate to being elite. Oh my God, there's a fire.
I know.
The All Blacks are number one in COVID as well, aren't they?
I know they are. It's like the Ranfurly Shield, isn't it? Being good at COVID. Every other week it switches about.
Exactly.
Just how it is.
So we're almost reaching the end of this. We'll get to some of the comments soon. Loads come through. So we're going to a super producer who's going to load a few in there. I will say Paul O'Connell to join the Ireland coaching ticket.
That's big.
That's good.
I had a day off Twitter when that landed, and I looked at my phone in the night and went, "What? What? That's fantastic, isn't it?
That's very good." Right into the comments and questions. Chiefs girl, Morning, boys. Haven't been on in a while because you guys kept changing the day. Yes, we did. We have been rolling it forward in the week, and I think we're now settling on the Monday. Feels about right. You finally the right day. Good to see you, and keep her tight. We will need Super Rugby Aotearoa very soon. Ewan Davis, Jared might be in team of the week, but defence isn't ready for Wales. Blues moved him for the scrum, so Calamafoni wouldn't run over him. Okay, any comments?
I have a slightly.
Well,
Go on, sorry, Sean.
if he still run over Halaholo and Lilo, then Jared wasn't going to stop him either. But I do take Ewan Davis's point. That has been suspect, along with his goal kicking. You know, it's not. He kicked well on the weekend, the big ones. He still missed a couple. But international level, you can't be 74, 75%. You know, only half over the 90s.
You know, I had a very brief chat. I'll do this very briefly on Twitter on the weekend with Craig Hawkins, used to play hooker for Llanelli, Sean. Ripper. So he was in school, a couple of years younger than me, and he was saying, you know, there's a big difference between succeeding at regional level and test level. And we were just going back and forth. The test level is about not making mistakes, isn't it? Now, it's not so much about what you create; it's about what you don't allow them to create. And maybe Jared at the moment is falling foul of that. And you look at the players, particularly with Wales. Say full back, for instance, Lee Halfpenny is selected because of what he doesn't let through, possibly over what he does create. So Jared will have to sort of tighten that up if he's to get into the proper conversations with Wales.
Yeah. I just think he's got something. Then it's a balance, mate. It's a payoff.
Yes.
You know, if he's got the something that we've just watched and he's showing a lot of, then you've got to give something up. You know, if he doesn't quite defend that, you know, at some point we've got to hang our hat a little bit. You know, we're not going to have damn near bigger forever. You look at Reece Patchell in the Welsh shirt, full of mistakes.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
We keep picking in the squads, don't we?
Yeah.
Harley Worthy on kick meters. Leinster almost half the kick meters, but the same tries from kicks as Cardiff and Scarlets. Kicking is definitely a quality over quantity.
There we go.
Thing.
They know when to kick. They got an array of kicks. They know when to kick. They vary their kicks. Harley, good evening, Harley. He put some real good points on here. He contributes really well, and that's when Leinster hello.
Oh, there we go. I did. There was something came up real fast. I wasn't able to read it. Who else? What else we got here? Oh yeah, here you go. Sean, how do you politely tell someone they're wrong when they say Adams has gone backwards just because he isn't scoring tries?
I'd say you're talking through your backside. That's as polite as it gets, Harley, because you know he's still the same player. The problem that Josh has had is that I think he scored 12 tries in his first 15 tests, something like that.
Exactly.
Now, is it his fault he's only scored one Guinness PRO14 try this year? Evidently not. You know, he had a good game Saturday, and I like him.
And you watch how many tries he scores now. He's playing outside Halaholo and Ray Lilo. He'll get a lot more reasonable passes out there than he has been, I'd say, in the last 6 weeks.
That inside run that Jared went through, his run made that try. So, you know, no, you just politely tell him, Harley.
Ewan Davis, hopefully pick Odogwu for the next Six Nations. Playing Spain for us. What a game Wasps versus Bath was.
He is unbelievable, that lad. My first flat was smaller than his thighs. And I tell you what, the way he breaks through tackles, unbelievable. Really good player.
He's like a shuffler, isn't he? He goes quick.
Yeah, he's a hell of a good player. And he is right. That was a fantastic game, Wasp.
Give touch rugby, Paul. Come on.
Yeah, I love touch rugby. You know me.
52, 45.
My argument is always the more line breaks, it's not because of weak tackling, it's because it's very difficult to tackle triple threat players. But then I'm allowed to be shouted down by a Magners winning coach.
Harley Worthy, Magners. That's a long time ago, isn't it? Never mind Dublin. Imagine a long weekend in Rome. Wife's happy because it's romantic. I'm happy because rugby. And I know lots of female rugby fans who are very happy because it's rugby and it's nice and warm. These are the things we're all missing, guys. So
won't be long.
Fingers crossed. Ewan Davis.
Dabbed up.
Tap penalties becoming popular and catching teams out. Blues did it. Dupont scored one of the best tries I've ever seen this weekend.
Yeah.
Vandal, Welsh qualified, created, and Bristol scored from taps, not just in the 5 metre like Exeter and Ulster have done this season.
I totally agree with this, because this is the way I think you catch out defensive mismatches. You know, if you're waiting for a prop who's sitting 3 ruck guards out in the mid, he's going to come back in eventually over phases. Whereas if you can catch them straight away, say you've got a penalty after 10 phases, that defensive line's all over the place, isn't it? They haven't got time to get back into position and get the forwards nearer the ruck. So I'm a massive, especially in the opposition half, tap it and go.
It's becoming the third set piece, as I said the other week with Glasgow, isn't it? McGeady doesn't like the charging with a couple of players, the old running more, which is right. But
the lying wedge, we should call it. It's in between a flying wedge.
Could Connacht have taken the tap penalty instead of the scrum at the end of the Munster game? You know, we'll never know. But certainly, you know, the tap penalty, people like Thomas Williams, Anton Dupont, unbelievable, because you have to retreat as a defender. You can't touch them until they've run 5 meters, and you're not back on side until they've run 5 meters or they've passed the ball. So you know, they are the issues there. But yeah, and I think it's not Vandal, it's Harry Randall that everyone means.
Can I just mention one more very quick thing on quick tap penalties? One law I'd like to see changed is where you can take a quick tap penalty from. So it hasn't got to be from the mark, almost like a preferred lie in golf, right? Where you can move the ball 6 inches or 3 inches to the left, to the right, or behind, but never moving yourself forward. I think that should be allowed with a quick tap penalty. So you could take it, because you could do it quicker and you can just go. So if it's within 3 meters, you haven't got to wait for the ref to say, "Oh no, I said it's just by my second toe inside on my left foot there."
So
3
then,
meters.
if I've got a kick to win the game, can I move the ball closer to the post and make it an easier kick? Well, what's the difference?
Only quick taps.
There's a mark. There's a penalty mark for a reason. You're changing history here.
I think Andy agrees deep down. I can see it in his eyes.
No, I'm just really entertained because we're going into Paul Williams' head right now, Sean. You can't actually argue with Paul Williams' head.
The logic's right, and I've also got another thing I'd like to see where you don't have to tap it off your knee or your foot, because that promotes only shorter scrum halves being able to do it quickly. I think you should be able to bounce the ball off your chest once. You just go bang. Anyone can do it then. Big, fat lumps, tall, gangly second rows. So you just go bang, and then you're off.
No, comedy value, because that won't be clear to a referee. You could do it off your head, though.
Off your head. There we go. Something. It's just got to be clear. It's got to that. Bounce it off, and you're off. 3 meters either side or behind. 2 extra tries a game. You know it makes sense, Ulster.
Did that make it into your column, Paul?
It might make it in after this, because just to rile Holley, he looks like he wants to rip my insides out now.
It's a cross between Harlem Globetrotters and New York Cosmos football.
It could happen.
The victory is ridiculous.
The victory.
Good gracious me.
Before we go, because we're kind of back into that space again, it does feel a little like last year where things are kind of just, the sands are shifting a lot underneath our feet, and none of us would be surprised if everyone just said, lads, we have to take 2 weeks off sport. Just to calm things down. We're in that space again. So, podcasts, box sets, books.
No.
I know you don't want to recommend a book because it's not your thing, Paul. But point the people towards something that would be good.
Well, I tell you what, my wife and I started watching something the other day, and it was quite ironic because we watched this Designated Survivor, Kiefer Sutherland, right, where very quickly, if there's a big do, where all the Senate and all the powers for America are all in one place, they designate somebody to go into a safe place. So if they all get blown up, he or she becomes president, right? And that happened to be Kiefer Sutherland, right? It happened in Capitol Hill, and it all blew up, and they stormed, all that. And my wife said, "Can you imagine that wouldn't happen? A terrorist get into Capitol Hill."
No.
The day. You got
Walking.
Jamiroquai and all those headers getting into the bloody.
Jamiroquai and all those headers. That's so South Wales. I love that. Jamiroquai and all those headers.
Guys. So, but anyway, the only issue I have with Designated Survivor, it's really good. It's one of those ones where you're buying into 30, 40 episodes. I'm not that man. I need an 8 to 12, me.
Yeah. You know my feelings on books and that sort of thing. Weirdly, I've started writing a book. I've only read 2, but I'm not going to mention that now. The thing I have been watching, Netflix, which worth watching, is a thing by it's directed by Martin Scorsese and a woman called Fran Lebowitz, who I've never come across until this week. And it's like real look around New York and proper sort of New York Jewish humor. It's fantastic. Well worth a watch.
I've also got a couple of books.
I'll go first. Book. Ben McIntyre, The Spy and the Traitor. True story. It is one of the best things I have ever read about a KGB guy.
I bet it would be better as an audiobook, though. Guarantee.
Especially with the right actors involved and marketed well.
That's a good one.
What's that? 50 in reverse?
50 in reverse. Had it for my 50th birthday.
Nice.
Very interesting. And then another one which I'm just about to get into, and this is the new fad in and around South Wales. You got all these nutbags, right? They're whacking on their swimming trunks and bikinis and jumping in the sea. It's freezing, right? But it's all because of this guy.
Oh yeah,
the Wim Hof, right?
Yeah.
He's this guy who is jumping into ice baths and all that sort of nonsense. So I'm going to read it, but if it does get me to go and jump in the sea in Aberafan Beach, then I don't know what I can't see that.
We should film that and put it. That could be content for the pod. You swimming in Aberafan.
Yeah, you swim in Aberafan. Paul will read a book.
A short one.
Ian Gilbert, Mindset. That was the other book that Sean you put up there. Mindset is a great book for coaches or teachers.
It's a good book,
says Jared.
Mindset's a good book for guys, I'd say our age, and ladies. But so in my time of life, sometimes you've got to, I get asked to do this, that, and the other. Will I go back to coaching? And then what direction am I doing this? And sometimes you've just got to remember who you are, what your direction is, what you stand for, what you exist for. Mindset helps you do that.
God, I might read that. I could do with about 3 books written on that. I don't know what the hell I'm doing from one day to the next.
Well, you might have some time.
We know.
Right, we'll wrap her up. It's nice to end on an abusive note. That's what we need to do. Harold Davis, next week, Sean will be doing the whole pod sat in an ice bath.
Imagine that.
Excellent suggestion. Love it. Thank you, Sean Holley. Thank you, Paul Williams. Thank you, producer Adam Redmond. Thank all of you in the comment section here live or listening back. We might be hopelessly out of date when it comes to announcements, but that's what we do. Thanks for giving us some of your time. We hope you enjoyed it. Keep her tight. Let's hope we can get through another few weeks together of rugby or a little less rugby. Let's enjoy it. And let's keep each other safe. That was Under the Sticks, brought to you by Pro14 Rugby. My name's Andy McGeady. We'll talk to you soon. They call me cheetah.